across all social media. The hashtag to use today is hashtag Talk Thursday because that's what we're doing. We're talking about issues that you and I are facing each and every day. This is Ekse Live. Everybody, you've made the correct, the bravest, the most intelligent decision by joining us right here on Channel 263. We're also on free-to-air channel right here on the great metropole Yalapa, Cape Town. So tell a friend that they can easily join us on the DStv, DStv, Channel 263-021-448-0448. Do dial us. We love hearing from you. You can also email us through ekse@capetowntv.org. Good afternoon to you and yours. My name is Lama. Welcome to the biggest, the baddest, and the most hip and happening youth show in the motherland. Joining me right now, Khadija, like I told you earlier on, she's from Isonke Gender Justice. They work throughout Africa. I believe they can work together to fight patriarchy, resist it in all means, so that we have a better understanding as human beings rather than you're female, I'm male, and we have different roles. Somebody who doesn't know about Uyu Gender Justice, what is it about and what work do you guys put forth?
So Sonke Gender Justice believes in working with both men and boys and women and girls in alleviating gender-based violence on a larger spectrum, and also understanding the intersectionalities thereof, such as sexual harassment and digital slut-shaming, victim blaming, body shaming. So all of these things that people in the 21st century as well have to deal with on different platforms as people evolve and communications evolve. So we have this on multiple levels. We have community education and mobilization, which actually goes out into communities to educate people around gender-based violence and have conversations around gender-based violence to make them understand what it is and how we can address it together as a nation to bring down the statistics in South Africa associated with gender-based violence. So the statistics is 5 times the global rate in South Africa, and that is telling within the context of the continent. It's a problem and we all need to come together. We also lobby government, and through the Policy Education and Development Advocacy Unit, which we create spaces to get into Parliament to help advise on laws and also bring in public submissions. So we get the community's involvement and we present it to Parliament to show what the community's issues are around these policies that they want to implement. So it works on multiple levels. We also work in the region. So Sonke's work really helps to empower people to tell their own stories in their own voices and to drive community work within the communities themselves through educating them and how to become activists and agents within their own spaces.
Since you started working, not you personally, but when the doors opened, the doors of Zakasonge, how do you evaluate the work that you have done? Do you see that this work that we're doing is doing something positive for the community? Are there changes that you can notify? Can you pinpoint that 5% of Lendo Silwayo has dropped, or people are ignoring our cause and violence is going higher and higher?
So it's difficult to measure that kind of change because we work on behavioral change in terms of educating people in order to make different choices. And that, you can imagine, is the years of speaking to communities, engaging with communities, especially around what you are saying, patriarchal beliefs that is associated with toxic masculinities. And also something basic like what is gender? Gender is what you choose to be versus what is sex is a biological assignment. It's just getting people to get that basic understanding of what gender is and how gender-based violence work with men and women together in the same spaces so that people can educate each other and have a knock-on effect. So it takes a long time to actually impact that kind of level of change within an individual in terms of that person as well going out there to spread the word. But we do try and measure this. The statistics in South Africa is not very visible. We don't have real statistics to measure gender-based violence, and that is also an issue because government does not recognize gender-based violence as a particular crime. It is under a criminal offensive act. So even members of the LGBTQI community who get attacked based on their gender assignment of what they choose get attacked, and it is an assault case. It's not a hate crime. The same with rape. It is not rape associated with gender. It is just rape. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's difficult to measure this, and especially with the problematic way in which our government measures statistics in any case. We know that there are breakdowns between police stations in communities where they are actually driven away to get, if they want to lay a case, because it skews the statistics within the police stations, and they are based on, their statistics are based on their performance appraisal, which means that they get impacted in terms of their money as well. They don't
Would
get
you then
promoted.
feel like if these cases were subdivided, this is a hate crime, this is violence, this is gender-based, would you feel that now we be working towards eliminating these kind of behaviors?
We are trying, and I think civil society organizations, not only Sonke, have come together, especially with the total shutdown movements that you've seen, to try and come together and work on a national strategic plan to alleviate gender-based violence. And within that plan is the suggestion of trying to streamline or categorize these various levels of discrimination. And also the hate crimes courts have also come into fruition. Perhaps that is also a step towards the right direction, but it's a long and drawn-out process that includes government, civil society, and ordinary citizens being activists in their own capacity to drive the process.
Yeah. Now, briefly break down the campaign at Cat Cause of Cape Town that has been in cooperation with Sonke Gender Justice.
So at Cat Cause of Cape Town does something different. It is based on a program actually created by a woman called Sophie Sandberg in New York. She was 15 years old when she got sexually harassed and decided to initiate something to bring, to shine a spotlight on what sexual harassment is, or street harassment as the Americans called it. So in South Africa, we know the context is different. Our issue is gender-based violence. We've got intimate partner violence. We've got domestic violence. We've got different issues within South Africa that needed to intersect. So sexual and gender-based violence and sexual harassment is an intersection of that. So we understood that. And also with our resource issues, we could not rely on people to have access to data, because you know the hashtag data must fall.
Yeah.
It's an issue within South Africa. So we took to the streets and actually collected stories of women, ordinary women who have experienced gender-based violence and sexual harassment in the spaces that they should feel comfortable in. So sexual harassment is something that happens within the workplace, within the public space, in places that women are supposed to feel comfortable.
Even at home.
Even at home. And a lot of the women we speak to don't understand that they have been sexually harassed. Someone would feel them up in a train station and they would feel uncomfortable about it, but not understand that it is because they were violated. So we use it as an educational tool as well. So the Cat Calls campaign is run on Instagram, but we do take it to the streets. We collect the stories, we write it in chalk on the sidewalk, we take pictures of that, and then we post it on Instagram to create conversations.
Yeah.
But interestingly, there were a lot of men also that would gather around these comments, and they would find it problematic. So one of the interactions, if you don't mind me speaking, was
Go ahead.
yesterday we were doing cat calls and we had interacted with what I believe was a perpetrator. He did not understand that rape was wrong. And exactly in this 21st century, you would understand that it was a shock to myself as well. So I had to gather my wits to explain to him that sexual and gender-based violence is rape, and that rape is wrong and rape is a crime. And his response was, but then how do I get pleasure if I don't rape?
Excuse me?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, before I lose myself, let's move along. Victims you do not offer counseling to victims. So who do you then turn them to after seeking solace through Sonke?
So what we do in any program, if we know or we get an indication that that person had experienced sexual and gender-based violence, sometimes in these spaces, like if we give trainings, people will ask questions that allude to the fact that they might be a survivor or victim, but they're not comfortable expressing this. What we would do is that we work in collaboration with other organizations such as Rape Crisis and Scalabrini, and we refer people onto them because they've got counseling services and they are NGOs specifically organized for that purpose alone. So we try and educate people, but we also work, it's important to work with other stakeholders to actually move the work forward, because we can only do impact change together.
So what was the thinking behind, you mentioned that you went onto Instagram and those social media platforms to engage and have conversations about these gender-based violence, and Voxes as well. What was the thinking behind that, and does it help?
It really does help. So with social media, it's difficult to ascertain what people's feelings are about it, but you can actually see through page impressions, and you can measure through different analytical systems as to how far it has reached. So people are definitely watching it, they're reading about it. But you know the culture of South Africans, we don't want to engage unless we directly get spoken to.
Of course.
So these conversations a lot of the time happen offline. So while we are collecting stories, we are having conversations, we're educating people. Through our private messaging, people will message us around issues that they are grappling with. It is impactful because we've taken a step further and we went into the streets. And the army of the chalkers are young women. So these are young women at colleges, at universities, at schools who are also collecting these stories. And in that way, they are building a sisterhood of different people who have experienced sexual and gender-based violence, and a support system in which they can rely on each other. So different WhatsApp groups have been developed as a result of building these relationships, and women are speaking to each other on those platforms as well about issues that they are grappling with and different variations of that. These young women are so empowered with telling their own stories and also carrying it on. And what I love about it is that it's so inclusive. They do understand things about intersectionality, and people are members of the LGBTQI community who are even more educated around the gender issue than a layperson on the street. So it's really building community and a sense of community and solidarity among women.
Now, one wants to be part of the community because they've got stories to share, to tell, they want to learn as well. What is the handle, and which social media platforms can they get hold of you?
So for the month of August, we've launched it with at Catcalls of Cape Town on Sonke's platform. So that is at Sonke Gender Justice on Instagram. We also have a Twitter handle and a Facebook page. In addition, it's at Catcalls of Cape Town. So Catcalls of Cape Town is run by young women, and this is going to be taken on as an extension of the platform that Sonke provides. But we will be providing support in terms of education and any kind of resources that they do need.
Now, how does this campaign help fight gender-based violence in South Africa particularly?
So this is a microaggression. So sexual harassment is a microaggression that leads to a behavior. So microaggressions contribute to gender-based violence through kind of consenting this kind of discourse. So for instance, if you are at a bar and someone says, I could do this to Jessica Alba because she's a beautiful woman, you could call that person out because he's basically fantasizing about Jessica Alba in a way that is detached. But if you replace Jessica Alba with your mother, would you say the same thing? So it's to understand these microaggressions. And the microaggressions is what socializes rape culture. So rape culture is what actually leads to the action of rape, and why we can meet people on the street who perpetrate rape but don't understand why it's wrong. So it's actually to hold people to account around what they say and what their constitutionality is, and to encourage discussions around microaggressions. Because microaggressions is something that you just shrug off, but it does really have a big impact on how you feel emotionally, how you get harassed on the street, in public transport, what someone says to you that makes you feel uncomfortable. Now we want people to feel empowered to call it out.
Now, what can your regular citizen get to do to get involved with what you guys are doing, because it's a great campaign? And what advice would you give a bystander who's saying, this has nothing to do with me, it would never happen to me, or it has never happened to me? What advice do you have for bystanders, for people who are just watching from afar, And what can your regular citizen do to get involved with the work that you're doing?
So we've got our social media campaigns on social media, obviously. They can direct message us through those pages. So we will share the stories without associating any identity to it, so that people can be free to express themselves. You'll find us on the street all the time with different people asking different questions, and they can feel safe to share those responses. And also we've got a website. It's www.genderjustice.org.za. We've got a variety of tools that can help you also navigate these discussions. Also an itinerary of terminology like toxic masculinities. It's not really accessible language to everyone. So when you experience sexual harassment in the street, so you can be firm to the harasser and know that you is a strong, clear voice, and that behavior, and tell them that behavior is unacceptable. So it could just mean that another woman or sister needs some support if someone is coming across them aggressively. So you could go to that person and say, "Hi, can I ask you for the time?" Just to show that you are aware and that your presence is there. And if that person...
It's another way of intervening, right?
Intervening, yes. So another way is also to ask the person if they're okay, or make as if you know that person. So I'd be like, "Hi, how are you?" You'd know, like there's a secret kind of submission going on there. So always remember that you do not want to solicit that kind of aggression toward yourself either. So always check in with yourself if you are comfortable with this. If what that person is saying is making you uncomfortable, you have to be calm, because aggression, which is met with aggression, can only amplify anger. So in terms of that, you can find a person who's in an authoritative position, like a security guard or a ICD officer, law enforcement officer or police officer, and ask that person to intervene. So sometimes, because we understand the gender dynamics of South Africa, we understand that the likelihood of a man speaking to another man about his problematic behavior is more likely to land easier than a woman addressing a man, because of these things that we are still working on to break down. So that's also a way if you don't want to directly get involved. And if you do find yourself in a situation where you see physical abuse happening, and you happen to have a phone, take a video of what is happening, but not to post on social media, because consent is key. You would walk up to the person and ask if this footage would help with the case that person would be laying eventually. So everything with consent. Also be a support system. If I'm seeing a woman walking down the street and she's lost and someone is catcalling her from the side, I'd walk with her in solidarity to show that we are a united front. So those are little things that you can do.
Sure. We need to cut this short because of time, but before I let you go, one more time, how do we get in contact with you? Social media, telephone numbers, email addresses?
So that's at Catcalls of Cape Town on Instagram, and also we have Sonke Gender Justice, www.genderjustice.org.za. All of the contact details for our organization is there, email address. We've got 3 offices, Cape Town, Bushbuck region, also in the region. So all of that information is there.
Sure. Kudos for the work that you're doing. Young girls and young boys need you in our community.
Thank you so much.
Cool stuff. You guys, you got those contact details. Otherwise, you can follow us on Facebook. It's Ekse on Cape Town TV to get those one more time.